Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm your host, Mike Veerman. You're here with our friend and trusted producer, Max Kerman. We also have our pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham. And guys, we have a very special episode. We have a very special guest. She's a former guest on this podcast. We did our very first live show with her. She is a phenomenal guest, and we love her. It is Catherine Reitman, because Workin Moms Season 5 is premiering either this Tuesday, if you're hearing this right now on a Monday, or it's already premiered, and it's premiering February 16th at 9 on CBC and CBC Gem. So check that out if you're hearing this before, and if you're hearing it after, check it out then too. Guys, we're going to get to Catherine in a little bit because she is our feature conversation. But before that, how's everybody doing? Max, I know you don't love the banter, but how you doing? I want to know how you doing.
I'm doing pretty good. And I was actually, getting really sentimental the other day because in our pod group, we were sending around photos of the last time we all hung out together, which was the Raptors game, which producer Erica has informed us was the last Raptors game played at the Scotiabank Arena. Obviously, nobody knew that at the time, but just seeing us all together in a sea of people made me feel in very intense things. Like, how did you guys feel looking at that footage?
Yeah, it felt like a decade ago. It just felt like, wow, like that. My hair is short. That's another life ago. It's just so different. It was like seeing a different person.
Yeah, it's that footage. So I'm very well aware that was the last Raptors home game because I've thought about that night a few times since the pandemic started, because after that game, they lost to Charlotte that night. They went on the road, and that road trip, as we know, ended in the Utah game, which they won, but where Rudy Gobert had tested positive right after, and then the season was shut down 2 days later. So I've actually kind of gone back sometimes in like my darkest moments and like watched that footage from my phone and just been like, oh, the old world, when things get bleak, just as like a beacon of hope. But what's so interesting about that night, and when I think about sort of parallel paths, is even the way that night came about was it was kind of last minute like tickets, and we were recording a pod on the Friday, and I had gone out the Thursday night, I think with some work people, and we went for it. We had like a night, and Win was still pretty young. And so like, if I have a night on a Thursday, like Danica knows I am like super present on the Friday. Like I've got things on the Friday, but at about like 3:00 in the afternoon at work, like Ash, Max, they start texting the group. They're like, hey, after the pod tonight, are people available to like, let's maybe have a night out with the podcast. We have these tickets to the game. And I was like, damn it. I'm like, I kind of burned my my night out last night. I'm like, it's going to be kind of like an uncomfortable conversation, but fuck, they're going to be great tickets because I know that it was like through Nick Nurse and stuff. So I called Dan and I'm like, hey, babe, like, we're doing this thing with the pod. It'd be weird if I wasn't a part of it. And she was like, enjoy your night. And I was like, sweet. And I even felt kind of guilty. I am so glad that I went back to back and went out that night because it ended up being the last
well, this is the argument to always say yes to stuff, right?
Yes.
This is the argument when you're like, should I go to this thing? Oh, no, I should. You know what I mean? You're like, well, you never know when you're going to be locked in the fucking house for 16 months. Because, that should be the argument moving forward whenever you're having a conversation with your partner. It should be like, I need to do this because I think this is important to me. And you never know. You never know when your life is going to be taken away from you. So that's why you got to say yes to more stuff. So this affirms your belief in doing stuff, Mike. I think you'll always have that card to play with Danica.
And it was an exceptional night. Like you got interviewed on the TV. We ended up in that fancy like the chairman's lounge. Like there were great tickets. Like Shane was trying to like we were right like courtside as they were coming out of the tunnel. Like it was a very 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 sort of unique experience. That I get it. Anyway, just say yes, like you said. Just say yes to things.
So, but speaking of which, I've been missing human interaction, obviously, a lot. And I thought to myself, I'm going to take this subway because I haven't, been on public transportation in a while. And I was in this window of time. I had to like walk to the studio. I was meeting the band. The band's been working on some stuff. And if I started to walk, I'd be late. If I took an Uber, I'd be there early. So I was in the sweet spot and it was kind of cold. I didn't want to bike. I was like, taking the subway and then the streetcar is the move. So I got on the subway. It was pretty empty. It was like 11 a.m. on a Friday. So typically it'd probably be pretty busy. But there was like really nobody on the subway. But it still made me feel pretty good just to like be on the subway because I love taking public transportation generally. And then I get off at Yonge and Queen and I'm waiting for the streetcar to show up. And again, it's like, that's sort of like the middle of the financial district. And it's pretty much a ghost town at this point. And there are these two like homeless guys that are clearly like unwell, like likely like on drugs, just sort of asking people for cigarettes. Like everybody who kind of walks by, can I have a cigarette? Can I have a cigarette? And kind of being a little aggressive about it. And then this guy comes by, and this guy's probably like, I don't know, mid-20s, wearing like a nice looking winter jacket. He's crossing the street. He has a coffee in his hand. Guy's like, hey, can I have a cigarette? And then the guy's like, I don't got a fucking cigarette. And the guy kind of comes back at him kind of hard. And then the homeless guy starts kind of yelling at him. And then the guy who's drinking the coffee, he goes, okay, are we doing this right now? And he puts his coffee down on like the windowsill, takes his cell phone out of his pocket, and he's like, let's fucking go. And it's just me, this guy, and the homeless dude. Just like, I'm like, oh God, like what am I? And there's no one else around to sort of like break it up. So then I'm like, guys, and I kind of raise my voice, and I think they both think that I want to fight them because I raise my voice in a way that
team up
feels
on you and whoop you.
Well, they were just kind of confused
Take
as
all
to what
Max's
my
cigarettes.
role in this.
We know Max carries a carton everywhere he goes in case he gets stressed out. Yeah.
So then I'm like, guys, we don't need to be doing this. And then the guy who is a little, the more well-to-do guy, kind of looks at me. He's like, I deal with this shit every fucking day. I can't take it. I'm like, yeah, I know, man. But like, look at him. He's having a hard time. And so I kind of like break it up, and they kind of jaw at each other. And then we all just have to stand there waiting for the streetcar.
Always the awkward moment after the confrontation.
So then nobody's really talking to me. The guy is like, appreciate though. I really appreciate it. So he's thankful. He grabs his phone, puts it back in his pocket. He's drinking his coffee. He gives me props. And then we all go in the streetcar together, and we're all sitting in the same kind of compartment of the streetcar. So for the next like 10 minutes, dude is sitting next to me with drinking his coffee. The homeless guy's across the way. And then
The homeless guy was
off.
taking the streetcar too.
He was taking the streetcar too. He had a transfer. And then the guy with the coffee, when he gets up, we kind of like, he's like, I appreciate it. And he gives me another props. And then that was that. But it reminded me, we have a buddy who's sort of in law enforcement. And I was telling him about the cycling vigilante. And I was telling him how our friend has been giving out tickets to people who are parked in the bike lane. And he's like, yo, your buddy's got to not do that because people are a little unhinged right now, and he's going to get himself fucking killed. And I was like, oh yeah, I never really thought about that. But just witnessing this thing happen that blew up in the middle of a Friday morning at 11 a.m. went from 0 to 100 quickly. Anyway, just as a caution for all the listeners out there, just be careful because everybody's
People are on edge.
On edge right now. But
when you do something heroic like that, is there a part of your brain that is hoping it's captured on like a cell phone camera?
a little bit for sure. I was very excited to tell you guys about it. I'll tell you that much. Like as soon as it happened, I was like, I go on to call Ash. I just want to call my friends and let them know what I did. But it was funny actually. We had a few friends. I don't care. I'm breaking the law here. I'll say it. We had a little fire pit at a local park in Toronto. There was just like a group of like 4 or 5 of us.
Illegal in lockdown, but normal in regular pandemic times.
Yeah, exactly. And we obviously did it very safely, and we were keeping quiet. It was all very respectful. I know you're not supposed to do that right now, but
yeah, and if anybody coughed, you throw them in the fire pit. It's just everyone has their rules.
But we ordered a pizza to the park. This is like part of the thing that we do. Is just like everybody brings a couple, cans of beer, and then we'll order pizza to the park. And I did the thing where, so the pizza was, when you order on Ubereats, things get expensive kind of quickly. Like a pizza that you think is like, $12.99. You look at the bill and somehow it's $64. You know how that happens? Like it's crazy.
Nah, Max, everybody that uses Uber Eats knows you go direct on pizza. You go direct to your server, like your supplier, whether it's Domino's or Pizza. You never do pizza on Uber Eats. Shane, would you agree?
Why is that?
I've never done it on
because you're paying
of the
fees.
reason you just suggested. Yeah, you don't want to pay the fees. Unless it's some weird boutique pizza place that you can only do on Uber Eats.
The reason that Uber Eats works is because it's like McDonald's would never normally deliver. But pizza places have the infrastructure for they're the original Uber Eats. So just cut out the middleman.
That is true. I guess I should have done that. But we ordered from Blondie's on Ossington, and they're like an independent place. And also like I'd have to like put the address in from the place I wasn't living, because I basically put the address in that's across from the park. So I just figured like the infrastructure of the app with Uber or Uber Eats just made the whole process simpler. But anyway, the bill comes to like $80 or something like that for 2 pizzas that we've
Keeps
ordered.
going up, yeah.
And yeah, and you're in that moment in Uber Eats. I'm like, because it's set at 15% gratuity, but then you could go down to 10, or you can go 20. This is a real
moment,
right? And here's the thing: is I like to be generous in these instances, but I was just thinking, I was like, oh God, like for something that I thought was going to be a $30 thing, now the 10% option, which is the cheapest option, is still like $12 or something like that for. You know what I mean? And also, gratuity is a funny thing with these delivery drivers because it's not like they're in the kitchen preparing. It's like the amount of service that they're offering isn't really any different. But anyway, so I hit the 10%.
The more food could get heavier.
yeah. True.
In Toronto, a lot of them are on bikes.
No, sure, but this person was coming in a car too, and so
never mind then.
But anyway, I hit the 10%. I'm like, oh, Max, don't be a fucking cheap asshole. You're in a park drinking with your friends. This is a person who, whatever. So I go back to 15%. I can feel good about that. And normally I like to be a good tipper, but just like, when it's like your, 25th Uber Eats delivery of that week, and you're like,
I've had the thought.
Yeah, make the delivery drivers pay, yeah.
Yeah. Stop it.
Hey, I've been eating a lot of food lately, okay, pal? I don't care about you or your family.
Anyway, I go back to 15%, and then guy gets out of his car, hands me the pizza box. He goes, hey, Arkel's guy, huh?
Oh, no.
And then I was like, anyway, I was so happy that I didn't do the 10% because if I had, I would have felt so bad. Because, you can be a little anonymous in these situations. But it was a good lesson for me. But to your point, Shane, it was like, do you think were you hoping someone was filming you when I broke up the fight? You just don't know, especially when you're in my position, who you're going to be interacting with and, if they know who I am or whatever. So the point is, I guess, you gotta always act.
But now the headline is Arkel's lead singer tips slightly below average.
No. But I tipped 15%, which is normal. And
that's slightly below average.
Is 20 the average
18%,
now? 18.
I think 18's the average. In
what are the options
times.
on Uber Eats though? Well, no. What are the options? Is 18% an option, or is it to go right to 20?
Yes, you can do actually any percentage you like. You can even dip below 10. Which for you, Max, is probably going to be very valuable, depending on how much the price of your order is.
Stop that,
Maxie. If you had gone with 0, let's say, and then he shows up and he's like, "Hey, Arkel's guy," would you have scrambled to find like a 20 to like hand him like cash, or would you just had to eat it and just be like, "Oh man, he's gonna think I'm cheap"?
Just had to eat it. I wasn't gonna go down to 0 though. That was never an option.
Very
I was
noble
either 10
of
or
you.
15.
Very commendable. The other day I was there's been this huge sort of snowstorm in Hamilton. It feels like it's been snowing for like 2 days straight or whatever. So it's like, it's crazy. So I was going out to shovel for like the second time or whatever in a day. And these like neighborhood like girls, like, I don't know, they're probably like 12, 13. I don't even know. And they're walking around with shovels, like they already had like kind of started the sidewalk in front of my place as I left the place. So I was like, I was going out to do it. And I was like, oh, hey, I'm like, are you guys like doing the neighborhood? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, and we came back from Toronto. I haven't really had a snowstorm like this since we've been back at the house. So I was like, are people like sorting you out with money? Like, I don't even know how to talk to like 12-year-olds that are doing like manual labor. And they're like, some people. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. You can do our sidewalk and our drive and all that. And I came in, I'm like, Danica, do we have like any cash? And she's like, for what? And I'm like, there's like neighborhood kids doing the. So I grabbed a 20 and like ran out and gave it to them. And I was like, this is the dream. I'm like, if I don't have to, I would pay for shoveling all day long.
Dude, were they impressed with your $20?
That seems like a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were happy, but I don't know what the going rate is. I haven't been in this situation ever. So I just kind of panicked and was like, here's a 20, kids. And I mean,
I think 5 is acceptable. 10 would be better. And 20 is extra.
It's like 10 each.
Yeah, it depends how old they are too, because it's like $20 to like an 8-year-old is a lot of money. If they're 12, maybe it's a normal amount of money. Do you know what I mean?
So they do 5 houses, they're making $100 or 50, I guess, each.
But I don't think everyone in the neighborhood. I don't know. They said some people were sorting them out. So
what was the quality of the work?
Well, so I go out there, a bit later, and I'm like, okay, well, could have done it myself.
So, Mike, your lot, like you live in a more like sort of traditional city space. So it's like the actual like size of like your sidewalk that you're responsible for isn't that big. So it probably shouldn't take too long. Shane, you live in a mansion or something, right? I've never actually
breaking
been
news.
to your house.
I do.
Yeah.
Breaking news. Ashley, manager Ash, has just texted the group about the going rate for shoveling. This is what comes up in Quora. Depends on how much shoveling there is to do. For a small to standard driveway, I would say $20. If they're shoveling your steps, walkway, driveway, and sidewalk, it could be up to $50. So depending on the amount involved, I would say $20 to $50. And you do not state if it was a teenager or someone else's. If it was your teenager or somebody else's. Anyway, so it looks like I was closer to the going rate.
So Shane, you sound like you're the cheap one because you have a massive property estate, and you live up on the mountain, and you have probably a big driveway. A lot of sidewalk space.
For mine, I would give 50 to 100. I was thinking about for Mike's dump that he lived in. No, no, Mike has a great place. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I didn't know that. So yeah, 20, I guess, is the bare minimum. When you are shoveling, Mike, do you do your neighbor's sidewalk at all? How far do you go to be generous?
Yeah, so we have like a neighbor, like the next door neighbor, who they sold their place, so it's actually vacant except for they had a basement tenant who's still there, and she's like an older lady. So not only do I do my sidewalk, but I do their sidewalk, and then I also go up their driveway to where the basement apartment goes to, because I know she's got to like walk out. And the thing is, my other neighbor on the other side is this guy from the East Coast. He's like the nicest guy ever. And like these East Coast people are so like, I would feel like I see him doing the neighbor's sidewalks. So then I actually feel shamed into doing it if he's out there shoveling as well. Cause I'm like, well, I can't like just look after my property because he's so sort of like thoughtful about everyone in the neighborhood. And then he told me once, he's like, oh, and like the key is for street parking, you gotta shovel around the car. So he's telling me all these things, which to me, all I hear is extra work. But then when we're both out there together, I'm like, fuck, I have to match his ambitions or I look lazy. So I act anyway. And also I like to listen to a podcast while I'm doing it. And then if he's out there, we're going to chat. So I got to take the podcast. You guys know this is.
Yeah. Oh,
man. Oh, it's the worst when you have AirPods in, you're shoveling and a neighbor wants to talk to you and they don't know you can't really hear them. And then you have to take them out and you're holding the AirPods.
Totally. He's also like the nicest guy in the world. I really like that guy.
Have you ever shoveled snow before, Max?
Next question. No,
moving on.
I shoveled, especially growing up. I had to shovel. Though my mom, we actually were talking about this the other day, because I have a lot of memories of shoveling our front, walkway and our sidewalk. And also my parents brokered a deal with the neighbor, because they were the second house to the corner. And the neighbor had an extra parking spot. So I think my parents brokered a deal that we'd shovel the sidewalk that goes all the way around the side. So like the sidewalk space is probably like 3 times what ours would be for the parking spot. And I have a lot of memories doing this, but I was talking to my mom the other day and she said, oh, you kids never helped me with the shoveling. I did all the shoveling. And I was like, what are you talking about? I helped you all the time. So my mom seems to think that I was unhelpful. And I don't know.
Did your dad ever help out at all? Or?
He's just reading a book, listening to music.
No, my dad is a lovely guy, has a lot of talents and strengths that he brings to the family. Like when it comes to like the winter and manual labor, dude is like pretty fucking useless.
Right.
I have no memories of going to the hardware store with my dad ever. Like growing up, it was my mom would go down and anything that needed to be fixed around the house. But yeah, my dad doesn't really participate so much in that. He's like, I'm not doing it. I'll pay someone.
That's actually a little closer to like how Danica and I are. And I will say, like, I'm talking about
Same
shoveling.
with me.
Danica shovels at least half or more of the time. So like there's times where she's just out there shoveling and I'm in with the kids. So it's not like I do all the shoveling. We break it up.
Well, I don't let Alex shovel. Sometimes she'll try to brush off her car, but I'm like, don't you do that. And I'll come out and I'll do it. Not that I want to do it, but I'm worried the neighbors are watching and judging me. So it has nothing to do with me being chivalrous or anything. I'm always just worried about public perception.
I do find though that archetype, Mike, that you speak of with this like East Coast like generous person. I wish I had a little bit more of that. Like I think I'm a generous person in a lot of ways, but when it comes to that, like I got nothing but time to shovel my neighbor's walkway, to like just like I have the actual time and to do the righteous thing at every possible turn. I don't have that in me, and I wish I had a little bit more of that in me. Like those sort of like very like neighborly moves where it's just like, it's like, I was at the beer store, got you a case of beer, or I'm gonna shovel your thing or whatever, like that thing. I don't have that instinct. I wish I had a little bit more of that in me.
I feel like it's like I don't mind living in that space where it's like I like that they raise my game. I always feel better about it. I always feel better about it. It's like I almost need to be around other people that are like that, because then it's like I'll rise to their level. Otherwise, my baseline is just get done what I need to get done. So I kind of like being surrounded by people like that. Even though in the moment I'm annoyed, after I'm always like, that was the right thing to do. It's like, but to your point, it's got to be in you. You can't really, you can't like, it's got to be who you are.
I feel like Owen, Danica's dad, is that kind of guy. He does the right thing, right?
Oh yeah. If there's work to be done, like actually I was doing bath time with Wynn like yesterday morning, and then Danica and her dad were like shoveling out an old lady's car across the street. And I was just like, damn, I'm like, you guys are like, but it wasn't like I wasn't busy, bathing a toddler, Shane, that's work.
Yeah, you're doing stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's talk about Springsteen. Let's I've been wanting to get your opinion on this stuff, guys.
Let's get to Bruce. Let's get to the boss.
Well, the story is he has a drinking problem, or is that an exaggeration? I don't know.
What have you followed up on any of this, Shane?
What, like the puff piece article that Barbara Kay did to exonerate him? Yeah, I read that.
Barbara Kay. Barbara Kay. Like, is that a National Post columnist?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just they tried to exonerate Bruce for his DUI or whatever it's called.
He's referring to the Jessica Mulrooney Barbara Kay piece. And then the New York Post piece about Bruce that basically said Bruce. So here's the story. You guys may have saw in the headlines that Bruce got hit with like a DUI or DWI. He was drinking, and then he was driving his motorcycle around. The police pulled him over. And he got busted back in November. It somehow stayed buried until now. We're in February. There was a big Jeep ad with Bruce that came out in the Super Bowl, which is obviously problematic because, obviously he got busted for drinking and driving, and now he's the face of driving Jeep or whatever. So then they had to pull their ad. And then afterward, the reporting came out, and this is the piece that Shane's referring to. It said that basically the way it went down was Bruce was on his motorcycle. He pulls over, sees some fans who offer him a shot of alcohol. So he takes the shot of alcohol with the fans. Then he gets back on his motorcycle and he leaves. But the cops saw him take the shot. So then they pull him over a bit down the road. They say, did you have some alcohol? Blah, blah. He says, yes. They arrest him for the DUI. Apparently, he doesn't even come close to blowing over. So his blood alcohol is actually okay, but they still book him. It's all going through the courts and everything like that.
It's like 0.2 or something like that. And
it was a super
0.08 or something. Yeah.
Non-illegal, as I understand it, sort of blood alcohol level. So it does feel a bit like the cops are like, hey, we can arrest Bruce. Or maybe it was to the letter of the law. I don't know, man. I don't live in New Jersey. But it is an interesting story. What were your initial thoughts, Maxie, when you saw your hero, Bruce Springsteen, was busted for drunk driving?
Okay, well, I went through, it was actually a real roller coaster of emotions, this whole episode, because when it first happened, I was like, oh man, like it just kind of goes to show that like, dependence on alcohol or drugs can kind of hit you at any point. Bruce has been very open about his depression, his anxiety. He talks about how he uses medication. So at first I was like, oh man, he must be going through something, even though he, he did the voiceover in this Jeep ad and he's never looked better. He could still be going through something that would cause him to be drinking and driving in the middle of in New Jersey in November, just like by himself. I was like, it's just such a lonely portrait. And I was thinking, like, oh, maybe he'll be writing a new album about it. Maybe this is like a thing maybe he'll go to rehab. You start kind of going down the road about like, okay, what is this going to mean for his career and what he decides to sing about, and as a fan, this is all stuff that interests me.
Is he still your hero when you find this out, though? Or do you start taking the posters down immediately?
No. It kind of humanized him in a way. So that was the first thing. It kind of humanized him in a way because compared to other rock stars, he hasn't seemed as tortured as others because he's such a physically healthy guy. But so even though he said that he suffered from depression and that he's taken medication, I'm like, oh, how bad are you actually compared to other people that really suffer for the art?
Yeah, prove
so
it.
This sort of... Yeah. Well, and this seemed to kind of prove it that like, okay, maybe he has an alcohol problem that we didn't know about, or maybe he's developed it later in life, whatever. The second thing that I felt was I was like, you know what? In this era of BLM and when it comes to just the history of police departments profiling, blacks when it comes to, driving around or arresting people. It's like I was actually, and knowing that white privileged people have gotten away with so much and are given typically a much longer leash when it comes to misbehavior in American life. I was like, you know what? I actually kind of weirdly feel good that the cops pulled over Bruce for drinking and driving, like that he's not above the law. So I was like, you know what? Maybe that's weird progress in a way. So I was like, okay, this is good that even someone like Bruce Springsteen, who's beloved, who's like the son of New Jersey, is not getting, because you can imagine a lot of cops pulling over Springsteen and going, "Oh, boss, we're going to let you go. Just get home safe." Like you can imagine that happening, and that would not be extended to other types of people necessarily. But then when the story comes out in the New York Post that all Bruce did was like riding around on his motorcycle, fans want to do a shot. He fucking does a shot. He's actually not drunk at all. And the cops are just fucking idiots and giving him a ticket for no reason. I was like, the boss is back, baby. Like, I love Bruce. It kind of just like a
back up. Yeah.
Yeah. Posters are going back up. Everything's back to how it should be. And cops are fucking idiots. And Bruce is the best. He just wants to, do something nice for a fan that offered him a shot of tequila. And
but that doesn't seem safe in COVID times to be taking shots. Like, how does that work? Like, is the glass clean? They put it.
I don't know. Maybe he had a red Dixie cup. That's what I can only assume. Yeah.
Okay. Would you do a shot of tequila if you were driving, though, Max? Offered by a fan, they give you a shot of tequila. Would you do that?
I mean, I wouldn't because I don't trust my tolerance in that way. But Springsteen's probably like, look, I'm a 70-something-year-old man. I know I can drink one drink and ride 15 minutes home on my bike on an empty road. So, I don't know. That's what I imagine he figured. So, long live the boss is my take on this situation.
Yeah, I wonder what the Jeep's take on this situation is right now. Like, can they put the ads back up after he's been exonerated?
Jeep is actually adding a shot holder where the cup holder used to be in the model that they're selling. Bruce's voice.
Honestly, that would be an awesome spot. Just I think he was on his motorcycle, so he's just like, for Harley, just be like, one more shot for the road,
Yeah.
And Springsteen, they recreated the whole thing in this very cinematic way.
Yeah, like a lime and salt edition of Harley. Yeah. I don't know.
Do you guys think? Okay, well, related when it comes to American heroes drinking, Tom Brady, who is another beacon of health, he got wasted during the Super Bowl parade. Everyone in Florida is not wearing masks or seeming concerned at all about coronavirus. But there's allegations that he wasn't actually drunk. Have you guys ever pretended to be wasted when you weren't actually that wasted?
Hold on. What's the angle here with Brady though? Just that he was like acting, like playing it up, or that he was.
So basically, people are speculating, like, and it was maybe confirmed by people that know Brady directly, that he wasn't actually drunk. So there's all this footage of him sort of having to be carried out of bars and him acting like a drunken fool. But he wasn't actually drunk. He was just sort of putting on a show for people. I kind of like that move.
Huh. That'd be very like Andy Kaufman-esque almost. It says something about his personality that he would sort of mess with perception like that, if it's true.
Why is it thought that?
I think his buddy, who's like the source on this, says that like Brady doesn't drink, or he just wouldn't do that. Or he talked to Brady on the side saying, I actually wasn't drunk. But maybe because, when they won the Super Bowl, everybody was partying, and then Brady just quietly was like packing his bag, as we discussed, and like not really celebrating. So maybe he wanted to go like, okay, it's expected of me to actually like hang out with the guys and be in the celebratory mood. I don't actually want to be hungover tomorrow morning. So let's just pretend I'm drunk. I feel like I've done that before. Like, you're like, I can't do another shot, guys. I'm wasted. And you're actually not that wasted, but you just don't want to do another shot. You know what I'm talking about?
He could have been packing his bags with liquor bottles, though. he could have clank. Because when you abstain for a long time, when you abstain for a long time, though, Max, you want to go all in once it's time. And I think once you win the Super Bowl, he's going to at least have 3 shots. And for a man who's abstained and on a very healthy diet, I think those 3 shots can get you really messed up.
Yeah, he doesn't drink any or eat any carbs either, it seems. So yeah. Maybe it was just like a couple drinks and he's fallen over.
But you pretend to be drunk a lot. You were going to say, Max?
Not a lot, but occasionally when I don't want to do like another drink, I'm like, guys, I'm really feeling it. I can't do another. But it's just because I don't want to.
Do you think anyone believes you though? Like, oh man, Max was really wasted last night.
I don't know. You have to tell me. I don't know. I'm going to share.
Yeah, I don't feel like you're a good actor.
Back in the before times when we all used to hang out at bars and drink, you were sort of a classic like Houdinier. You would just sort of be gone. Like it'd be 1:20 in the morning. You turn around and say, "Where'd Max go?" And it's like you just slip out when you get a little too drunk.
I'm a firm believer that you don't need to say bye to anybody when you're out and about. It's stupid. Goodbye. It's like goodbye. It's like I'll see you tomorrow. Who gives a shit? Nobody cares. And then you also open yourself up to people going, "No, you're not going anywhere, buddy. Sit right back down here." And that like. Oh, he's leaving us. Oh, okay. You're asking to be ribbed. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I'm looking for. It's like, I know I should be going home. So like, hey guys, gotta go. They're like, no, Mikey, sit down for a moment. I'm like, what? They had to. They told me to stay.
Yeah, it is a good attention move.
Yeah.
Well, you can tell Dan could be like, I tried to get out of there at like midnight.
It's
and the guys were just killing me and I needed it. Yeah, that's what I did.
But do you believe Tom Brady was drunk, Shane?
Yes, I do. And I think he maybe doesn't want to admit that he's drunk, or maybe he feels embarrassed, so he's just saying he was playing it out.
He's in trouble with Giselle, so he's literally he's created this whole narrative. I've got a hot tip. He calls it in, like with the fake voice, the Washington Post, the Tampa Bay Times.
Brady, he wasn't actually drunk. The idea of sources though that's always good. Like like
I just like the idea of him with the newspaper, like the headlines, Brady wasn't drunk, and he's sitting there in the living room when Giselle comes downstairs in the morning.
See?
Well, do you guys want to get to Catherine Reitman?
Let's get to Catherine Reitman. Yeah.
All right, guys. Friend of the pod. Excellent person. We love her. Like I said, she agreed to be part of our very first live show at the Rivoli. We had never met her before. Manager Ash actually had the idea of her being our feature guest at that Rivoli show. You can go back and listen to that episode. We ended up sort of playing the live audio. It was a magical night. And she was amazing, and she made it fantastic, just with her ability to sort of like riff and be so funny and sort of roll with the punches and just go with the sort of the stories and find little pockets of jokes. And we were saying sort of this interview it was great, because like Catherine's always great, but it's a damn shame that the four of us couldn't be in the same room together, because it had an energy that time at the Rivoli, and it would have been really fun to sort of redo that, and we will in the future. But today we did it on Zoom. Again, the reason that Catherine is here on our podcast is because Workin Moms is in season 5. The series premieres Tuesday, February 16th at 9 p.m. on CBC and CBC Gem. So that might be tomorrow as we're recording this on Monday. It might be tonight if you're listening to it on a Tuesday. And it might already be premiered if you're listening to this later in the week. So please check it out. Guys, do you want to get to Catherine Reitman?
Let's do it. Catherine, I know it's family day, so we are just going to jump right in.
Well, first of all, welcome back to the pod. This is very different than the last time all four of us were together, which was on a stage at the Rivoli in downtown Toronto.
So fun.
I know, that was amazing. That was like still one of the best. We still get messages all the time about how great that was. Mm-hmm. Like, when are you guys doing it again?
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
My dad still talks about that podcast. He's like, those boys were so nice. He was a big fan, and it was such a fun night.
It was. Well, for our listeners, it is Family Day in Ontario and Canada right now. I don't know about you, Catherine, or you, Shane, but like literally when I forgot it was Family Day, so I was like, yo, let's do this. Love to talk to Catherine. And I was like, oh shit, everybody's home. So right now I'm in the bedroom sequestered while my daughter and wife are running around downstairs. So if you hear like noises piping in, I apologize. Are you in the same boat, Catherine?
My kids will 100% crash this interview. They're right outside. I had Phil. I also forgot it was Family Day, and so did my husband think. That's why we're a perfect match. But I told him they're stacking wood right outside the house, and I think he was hoping that would but the only way we can get him to do that is if we promise him hot chocolate with marshmallows, which is like, it's a ticking time bomb. Any moment he's going to storm in here with hot chocolate. So just a heads up.
Yep, my daughters are playing upstairs right now. So yeah, same ticking time bomb.
Shane, how old are your daughters?
I have a 2-year-old daughter and a 7-month-old daughter.
7
Yeah.
months.
So she was born in quarantine. Yeah. It's
Wow.
crazy.
And actually, right before we started, while you were in the waiting room, we had to delay because Max was eating his cereal. So that's what
Classic.
Max has going on today.
Fucking
We're all at
classic.
different points in our life. Yeah.
Yeah, we all got
Max,
things,
what
our
kind
struggles.
how old is your cereal? Is it challenging? Do you just feel like it's aging you? What kind of
that's
cereal
my
though,
day.
for real? I want to know about
It
your
was
cereal.
actually a little bacon and eggs is what I had this morning.
Oh, I thought it was
Looked
cereal.
like cereal.
Oh.
Okay.
No, I was kind of shoveling it in my mouth like it was cereal, though. Sorry about the delay there, guys.
Imagine taking the solo time to just make bacon and eggs for yourself.
Well, actually, I'm at Ash's place because that's where I was doing this.
Okay, so it was for
podcast
two.
here.
It was for two.
And she made it, and and she's listening. So shouts for a brilliant
Ashley's
breakfast.
the best.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah. So first of all, what does your day look like? What is it like? What are you doing today? After this, are you going to help with the wood, or are you just on chocolate, like hot chocolate?
Fuck no. Fuck no. I'm not, despite how built I am, because I'm fucking ripped, I'm not a physical, I'm not a manual labor chick. I'm like a real mind games. Like if we were in if I was in a Katniss Everdeen Hunger Games situation, I wouldn't be someone who could outrun somebody or climb a tree, but I could mind game someone to fucking death, guys. I can psychologically win. So that's where my strengths are. Didn't answer the question, but I'm not outside with the wood. Today I've got 2 meetings. We're premiering tomorrow night, so we're sort of gearing up all the press pieces for season 5 of Workin Moms.
Woo.
Yeah. Well, speaking of season 5, congrats, season 5. The show just grows and grows and grows since the last time that we spoke, which is amazing. Actually, speaking of, how much do you feel like, obviously you guys went over to Netflix as well as still being with CBC. How much of an accelerant do you feel like Netflix was to sort of broaden sort of the reach of the show?
I mean, big time, right? It's what you imagine it to be. It's insane. For the first, I think we joined Netflix season 3. And I'm trying to remember when we did the Rivoli, but it was for the first 2 years. I mean, for the first year, I would just, no one knew what the show was. And then by season 3 in Toronto, people started to recognize us and watch the show. But it really, Netflix, what breaks my heart is I'll walk around Toronto and, taxpayer dollars pay for a big portion of the CBC. It's a public broadcaster. And I'll be and someone will be oh, I love the show. And I'm what do you watch it on? Praying that they're going to say CBC or CBC Gem. And so many people watch it even here on Netflix. It's the way people consume, right? I mean, that's the way I consume.
Do you find that you get recognized vastly more? Can you walk around Toronto these days? Or I feel like you must be you're everywhere. You're on all the billboards. What's your recognizability at this point?
I don't know if that's true, but recognizability, I think it's definitely changed.
It probably depends where you're at. Right? It depends on the context. So it's if you're in a place where you think the Working Moms demo would be, there's a heightened chance, right? Yeah.
Totally. And my favorite is when I'm somewhere that the demo is not Working Moms and a fucking busboy or someone will be hey! And I'm that's my dude right there. Although I was at the park with Max. We were recording something for the Red Cross Canada. And a bunch of young women came up, and I'm oh, here we go. Sorry, Max. It's going to take a minute to say hi to my fans. And they were Max? And they were all about Max. Max is this is my friend Catherine. They're uh-huh. When are you touring next? That was fun.
That was fun. That was good.
Well, I wanted to ask, I was just watching the season 5 trailer for Working Moms. And this is a 2-part question actually about Phil's body.
Go.
Now,
Go. Let's go.
Is his body always like that? And 2, if so, how?
Asking for a friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, you guys are all ripped, young, beautiful male specimens. So
Agreed.
don't
Not
let
quite like Phil.
Definitely.
do not let his redonkulous body intimidate you. His body is not always like that. That was to a degree, which, frankly, guys, I wouldn't recommend. I mean, it's it's a lifestyle. You know what I mean? To be ripped like
to have
that.
abs like that. Yeah.
Sexy AF, but a lot of work. And he's always like in good shape. He's like, we both like to work out, but he, for the show, got into like, I don't eat 14 hours a day shape. He did that like intermittent fasting thing.
That's discipline.
And yeah, real discipline, and worked out like a demon with a great trainer virtually. And yeah, the kids were like, what?
Who wrote his body into the show to be that way?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question though. Probably someone else. Probably someone who doesn't have sex with him.
Speaking of season 5, it's anyone producing sort of TV at this point in time. There's these sort of like inevitable, like sort of unavoidable hurdles with the pandemic. What was your approach to sort of how you were going to sort of like not only narratively sort of build your show during a pandemic? Do you acknowledge it? Do you not acknowledge it? And also sort of how you practically did it. Was it weird to be on set? Walk us through that.
It's super weird. I mean, I don't know if you guys spoken to anyone else who shot during this pandemic. It's terrible, man. It's look, I think the way people usually imagine shooting a television show is that it's like some very like old-fashioned glamorous thing, where's my cappuccino? But it's grunt work, right? It's long hours. It's very physical. We're a location show more than a set show. So when you're seeing us in apartments and homes and offices, a lot of those places are actual locations in Toronto, as opposed to The Big Bang Theory or something where it's on a set and it looks like there's nothing outside the windows. So we're going in and out of small locations with narrow stairwells, and I have a 180-person crew full of, huge equipment, and everyone's in masks and everyone's being tested 2 to 3 times a week. So that part of it was kind of brutal, but this amazing bond happens where I've never experienced anything like it. Like for the first 2 weeks, you don't trust anybody. For the first 2 weeks, you're like, what are you doing on the weekends? You better not be touching people.
Absolutely.
And the people with kids, you're like, okay, like you start overanalyzing it. You're like, okay, on the weekends, I'm sure they have kids, right? So they're at home more. They're not going out and interacting. But then like the millennial Zoomer generation, because you got a few of those, you're like, what are they doing on the weekends? Are they going to coffee shops? You can't go to coffee shops. Not when you're shooting. Like, you're just so terrified. And of course, the one person who got it was like a school teacher. Like, her husband was a school teacher. It was not some Zoomer, right? And it didn't shut us down. She isolated for a couple days and came back after testing negative, and we got through it. And we were incredibly bonded by the end of it. By the end, we were like a family.
And then narratively, what was the approach? Were you guys like, do we want to do a season where it's an alternate world where this thing doesn't exist? And I mean, we've all seen episode 1, lots of laughs, and it was interesting, the sort of choices you made. And I was wondering what that process was like.
Thanks. Yeah. We we have this like blue sky period for 2 weeks where all the writers get together. And this was prior to the pandemic, where we're like, what if Kate, I don't know, was married to a guy who was really in shape, and whatever. We like throw ideas against the wall.
It just kept on coming up every day. Like, okay.
They're like, Catherine, okay. I'm like, no, but like an 8-pack. They're like, yes, he's fucking
it's in
ripped.
The budget.
Yeah, exactly. And then we broke to write the scripts, and it just so happened that we broke the exact day in March where lockdown happened. So everyone went and wrote their scripts that had nothing to do with coronavirus. And we got back together, and it was like a discussion. It was like, do we want this? Do we want to address it? I don't know. Do you guys want to watch your show, your favorite show, where everyone's in masks?
No, I mean, this is the question that everyone's struggling with.
I absolutely don't. Mm-hmm. Like, I heard that Grey's Anatomy right now is like everyone's in masks, and a lot of people are actually struggling to watch it because, I mean, it's an amazing show and it's very addictive. But it's challenging, right? You're already dealing with it so much in your own personal life. So for me, I wanted the fans to be able to come back and go back to what they knew about the show, fucking chicks and skirt suits, smashing glass ceilings and not in masks, not talking about it. So we address it really quickly. Like 5 minutes into episode 1, it's the coronavirus. And then it's sort of a title card. And then we pick up several months after the coronavirus when the world's opening back up. None of us are in masks. I just couldn't handle the idea of a coronavirus season.
Hey, Catherine, on that note, you talked about like being in the writer's room and just like thinking about what themes to explore. And it's like, it's a very funny show, and but it's also can be a very heavy show when it comes to like, the real life decisions that families have to make and partners have to make with each other. And there's divorces and getting back together. Are you constantly like, taking notes of stories that you've heard from that other couples are going through, or things that are happening in your own life? And like, what do those conversations look like in the writer's room where you're like, oh, I had a friend who actually, and then like they tell a story and that leads to maybe a moment or an episode of the show. Like, talk about how those conversations sound.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of our season 1, I mean, I'm such a narcissist, man. Like season 1 was just 100% based off of my own experiences, because it was actually 6 women in the room. None of them were moms except for me. I just liked their samples. They were funny. And a lot of the mom samples I was reading were so like, I don't know. They were just like you've heard it, like they were broad and it was generic and it didn't sound premium and fresh. And since then, of course, I've gotten tons of awesome mom writers. But at the time, it was just me and a bunch of like really cool women. So it was all based off of my own experiences. And now, every time I'm like, it would be fun. Because it's season 5 as opposed to season 1, you start to go, okay, what if we put this character in the most unusual circumstance there? And then people start going, my husband and I did that, or, my girlfriend and I, whatever. And from that, we sort of grow relatable moments. What did you really want to say in that moment when you were dealing with that asshole nurse? And how do we build a scene around that?
Yeah, even the theme of like, Val flying out to moving to Calgary, and like that decision is something that like I know you've moved around, but like it's an interesting idea to play with. You're like, okay, if your friend moves away and then you have to go visit them, like it's like those are things that was that a specific thing that happened to you, or where did that idea come from?
For sure, I was born and raised in LA, and I moved out to Toronto 5 years ago for the show, and all my friendships became long distance. Of course, with the exception of the amazing friendships I've made here. I say that, and I actually don't have a lot of friends. I feel like all I do is work and parent. Like, who has like, I know you guys are very close, and you're like cool dudes, so you probably have lots of friends, but like,
not really.
Does anyone
like just these guys?
What are friendships, right? Like, what do you? I don't know. Like, I just want to get into like real territory here of like, what is friendship anymore? Like, right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is it for us. Yeah, this is it. The only time I see these guys, Mike and Max, is when we're doing the pod. Yeah. This is it.
I feel like I don't. So in a way, Anne moving to Calgary is like what
I meant Anne. My bad. Sorry about that. Sorry, Catherine. I said Val. I meant Anne. Sorry. Yes.
Oh, please.
Well, Val had some killer lines in the season 1 of episode 5.
So hilarious. Yeah.
Val is a crowd pleaser. For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're all long distance now. I don't know. I think the social awkwardness that's going to happen when we get out of this thing, you guys, and watching, like, even my kids are going back to school next week. And like, I can tell that they're like, so when we see people, like when we see kids, we just say, hey, right? We just say hi. I'm like, that's it. You just walk up. You say, what's up? You see what's going on? Ask them how their day was. Like, they're like looking for cues on how to interact again,
Mike, you and I actually had a normal phone call. We've actually had a couple of them in the last week, because we only really talked to each other on the podcast, and obviously there's a performative nature to that. And then we just chatted on the phone, and it felt so good because I haven't had just like a mic hang, which normally would take place at a bar or going to a Raptors game or something like that. And I was like, oh God, I miss this. Like, yeah, it's hard to get that in. And some people aren't phone people. I don't even know if I'm necessarily a phone person. But that's kind of what we're working with right now.
It wasn't a planned thing. It was kind of organic. It's like you called me to sort of gossip about basketball. And then after like 5 minutes of that, we actually just kind of got in, like we just kind of started, getting down to it like we would at a bar. But I mean, to your question, Catherine, that's kind of what's happening right now. What is friendship right now? It's like, it's Zooms, it's phone calls, it's backyards if the weather's all right, which right now we're in these 2 sort of dreadful months. And I think that this is like where people are just sort of holding on until the weather gets better and the vaccines show up. But like you said, how do we reintegrate like your children going to school? Us, like that first party in a house is going to be fucked up. Like you're going to be sitting there with the drink and you'll be like,
for sure. And like promiscuity, I'm so curious about, I mean, right? Like I feel like like STDs are just going to it's going to be like the 60s. Like it's just going to blow. It's going to be free love
the
again.
new pandemic will be STDs.
That's right. Yeah. It's going to be some sort of fucking like miniature rat that grows in your bush. Like there's going to be some crazy ass STD that comes out of when we reopen. And they'll be like, it just so happens that the vaccine makes it worse.
Yeah, it accelerates the rat in the bush. It grows larger. No.
Yes.
Yeah.
People have to having this vaccine. The rats, they're taking over the city.
Yeah, I guess, Shani, did you have a question? You look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, I was going to ask about, since we all are cooped up right now. So obviously your partner is somebody you're around 24/7, and not only are you parenting with him, you're working with him. Are you arguing way more or having disagreements way more, do you find?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And are they mostly about work or parenting, do you think?
Ooh, the dirty double. It depends. I mean, we're a very good partnership in that we know when to tap out, which is like part of it, right? Part of it is you have to be able to like get that crazy 10,000 foot view where you're looking down at yourself and being like, oh, this could get ugly. And you got to like know when to tap out and be like, okay, I'm not in a good headspace. I don't want to say anything I regret. We both are also like, we love therapy. So we've become very good at communicating vulnerably, which is not
Couples
my strong
therapy
suit.
Or separately?
Both. I think couples therapy was something we sort of like agreed upon going into marriage. It wasn't like there was some big inciting incident. It was just sort of like, hey, we want to do this forever, right? And we also want to like raise a family and make a bunch of TV, which is kind of like another family. So if we're going to do this right, if we want to be part of this tiny percentage of people that can work together and raise kids together, we got to do it right. So we don't mess around. We take therapy seriously. We take communication seriously. But there are times where I feel like I'm a really shitty communicator. So I have to tap out. But yeah, fights are definitely happening. I mean, are they happening with you guys?
Yeah, for me, though, it's all about, because we started working together once the pandemic struck. And I found all of our parenting disagreements are meaningless now. And everything is just about the work, the side hustle.
Does that feel less personal and better for you?
I find that it annoys my wife way more, because she doesn't want to be so rigid and scheduled. But I find for work to work, you need to have a schedule. So I feel more like I'm her boss than her partner.
I know
so that is it's an uncomfortable situation. But something I wanted to ask, because you had mentioned about a hospital fantasy, and this is something my wife mentions quite often. Her name's Alex. But I was watching an interview with you, and about season 1, the impetus for the show was almost this hospital fantasy. Yeah. And what that is for the listeners is when you want to get in a semi-serious accident where you're just well enough where you need to be, you're just hurt enough where you need to be in the hospital, but you're well enough to be fine. Your kids are still looked after, and you're waited on hand and foot by people in the hospital, the nurses. Do you still have that, or has the job replaced that fantasy?
Oh, it's such a good question because it's been a long time since I've talked about that. I think it's upgraded to a private hospital.
That's success.
And the fantasy has gotten more specific. And my kids are the same principle, right? Kids are well taken care of. Husband's fine. Husband's probably enjoying break, right?
Is the psychology behind this fantasy that you just get to be tended to? Is that as a mother who has to do all the work? Is that where
I think it's guilt-free? You get to be tended to without the guilt because you can't actually do anything because you're legitimately hurt. You
know what's changed it a little bit though is I don't want people around me. Like
robots.
Exactly. Okay. Nailed it.
They have 6-packs too.
I want
robots with 6-packs.
Ripped robots. I want ripped robots all around me, drinking cans of oil, ignoring me, except for delivering me pizza and wine. No, it's to be alone more. I think in season 1 I wanted to be taken care of, and now I'm always around people. I'm developing another show, and I've got my parents that I kind of take care of a little bit. So I have all these different people that I'm just constantly interacting with. So the idea of just being like alone, I think that's the new fantasy. It's like a hospital where like I hit buttons and things are left at the door, but I don't have to interact with anybody. Maybe one robot.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Shane?
I was just going to ask what the next project is, and is it about ripped robots?
Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
That's what it is.
It's literally called Ripped Robots.
In space,
it's just me and a robot on an island. You do the math, keeping ourselves busy. No, it's I don't think I can talk about it quite yet, but it's I promise you, as soon as it's a go, I will talk to you guys about it. It's really exciting, and it's I can say that it's not exclusively in the comedy space, which is really fun for me. It's a thriller comedy hybrid.
Wow.
Ooh.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
My alley. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Are you, I mean, you're talking about sort of a next project. This is kind of a two-part question. I guess, one, how long would you, if you could, would you see Working Moms go? And then two, philosophically, are you somebody that is always thinking about the future, 5 steps ahead? Like some people get very sort of in that, or are you like, I need to be present and focus on the task at hand?
It's a really good question. And to answer your first question about Workin Moms, it's a conversation we're having right now where we're like, how long does this exist? I also don't want to overstay my welcome. I want this show feels so special to me and it's so personal to me. I want to make sure that it doesn't become sort of generic sellout. I want it to still have an appeal. And for your second question, present or future?
You got it.
Yeah, I think I do think about the future all the time. Because I got, I don't know, I want to do a bunch of stuff and I'm not young, I'm getting older. So as you get older, you start feeling the clock and you start realizing like, God, it would be such a shame if I didn't take advantage of this period to do this, that, and the other. And being present, something I'm desperately, painfully working on. And I've discovered there's a few things I do that make me present, hanging out with my dog. So my dog, do you guys have dogs?
Catman.
Cat, yeah.
Catman.
Yeah.
Does this happen with cats? I actually have never spoken to someone about this. Like when you're with your cat, do you feel very present? Is it just all pets do this?
In moments, if he's on my chest and we're having a moment, but otherwise they're very independent and I can do my life, he can do his life. It's how I prefer it.
Totally.
Yeah.
I have a needy dog, which is like fucking my last story of my life. But he's like, when I'm with him, I feel like I'm very present. Or, like I'm writing a feature for somebody right now. And as I'm writing it, I get so overwhelmed with big picture and when am I going to finish it and when's it due and how do I get to the end of it? And a trick I use that I learned in production when I'd get overwhelmed, because I'd be missing my little kids and I would think about how I've got fucking 8 more weeks of this, how am I going to get through it? Is it's just like one scene at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One scene at a time. Let's just make the scene as funny as fucking possible. Let's be efficient. Let's be a pro. Let's get through it. And now it's the same in writing. I'm trying to apply that to all things. It's like just one scene at a time, 1 hour at a time, one step at a time. That's all you can do, right?
So with the dog, is it just like looking at the dog going, this is this other breathing, living thing who doesn't have a lot on his mind, and I just kind of want to entertain this dog, and maybe we go for a walk, and the dog is really fascinated by, that shrub over there, so maybe I can think about just like my immediate surrounding. Is that the idea?
Kind of. Walking is no good, because if I start walking, I'm thinking about what I'm doing later. But if the dog is sitting in front of me, and I'm like rubbing his ear, and I'm looking for that spot,
Yeah.
As I'm looking for it and all I'm doing is thinking about it and then he'll lock eyes with me, I find myself just it just brings me to the moment in a way that, if I'm with my husband talking about, well, what do you want to do? I can't slow down,
Do you set boundaries with Phil? Like, you're like, you know what, 8 o'clock, let's not fucking talk about the show. Like, let's just not do that. Or is there like deliberate things that you guys are like, we're on a date night, no talking about work or no talking, like, how
what
have
was
you
that
set
thing you just
boundaries?
said? A date what? Kind of. We say boundaries. Shane, I want to know how you do this. I mean, we don't respect each other's boundaries. we'll say like, hey, we shouldn't talk shit. We shouldn't talk work shit in bed. And then we get in bed and we get an email that's exciting or scary or whatever and needs to be answered quickly. And there it goes. But yeah, I'm sure that's not how we should be doing it. It's not, that doesn't like lead to fucking great sex or like intimate connection. That leads to stress and sleeping like shit. So I think you should set boundaries and honor them. We
do a date night one night a week. And that means...
How, where, what?
It's just Wednesday night. We have a wine delivery subscription. Yeah. So every Wednesday night, we drink half a bottle of wine each. And we play a board game. And we have sex.
I love it.
That's how you do it. Shane, does anyone ever drink more than their half and then that leads to tension?
Ooh.
No, we split it up. I'm obsessive about making sure that it's even.
Oh, yeah. Wait. You pour it all the way out and all the way out to make sure
the wine glass, I wish I had it here. It's the biggest wine glass in the world. So literally one glass is half the bottle. Yeah. No, it's not even to the brim. It's just a huge glass.
Oh, it's like a goblet.
Yes, exactly.
You're like Game of Thronesing at your
100%.
house on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And Mike, how old's your daughter?
She's 2 and like 3 months. She's just past 2. So
she's going to bed early.
Yeah, but she's a scammer. So like we started at 7 and then I'm there till 8:15. You know, it's like, you know how it goes.
Yeah, it's some bullshit.
It is. And she's a sophisticated scammer too, man. She pulls out all this. It's like, oh, okay, now you want to brush your teeth. And anyway, I need to be the boss. I'm dealing with it. You know, it's like hard. She's very funny.
But you want that in a girl. You want a girl to be a scammer and smarter than the average bear. With boys, it's so fucking simple, dude. It's just like, I am in penis world, fart world right now. It's just farts all the time, dicks out all the time. That's my whole life.
Yeah. Shani, I it's funny because sometimes there's a little bit of a choppiness for our listeners. Sometimes these Zooms get choppy. I don't know if you guys are experiencing that as well.
Zoom delays my whole life. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm trying to like manage this thing and play a bit of point guard where I'm like, oh, he almost spoke, but I'm like, no, that was from 5 seconds ago where his lips
just
moved.
Go, Mike. Don't worry about I've already spoken too much. You asked.
Oh, get out of here. You asked all the hard-hitting questions.
I would agree that Shane has talked way too much.
Most people do. Yeah. Normally I'm not invited to these.
Yeah, but I mean, Max, do you have any other questions? I mean, again, like the show's doing awesome, which is so exciting to see for you. Because I was thinking about it. You said, when did we do the Rivoli? I believe season 2 was just about to premiere, and then we were chatting. I could be wrong about that, but that's just off the top of my mind. And then you guys had season 4 was airing when the pandemic happened, and you were supposed to come on actually in February, I believe.
Right.
And then it got delayed, and we're like, oh, too bad, because we all would have got together in person. Yeah. And this is the thing. Don't delay, people, because you never know when like a life-shattering pandemic will come along and you won't be able to get together. We shouldn't have pushed
Let's go back to the Rivoli as soon as this fucking thing opens up.
Yes. Oh,
I'm down.
I'd kill for that. Okay, one more question for you, Catherine. You know, I love, I'm talking to somebody, like a songwriter, for instance. I like to ask about reference points. Be like, okay, what was the sound?
Connect to the Wi-Fi network.
Oh, shit. That was...
Is Alexa talking in the back? Alexa was not invited.
There's a
that
Google
Alexa
talking.
is always listening.
Yeah, always listening.
Alexa's like, I have a question for Catherine too, Max.
Will there
She's
be
like, you
a
guys
movie?
really blew it. I have a list this long of real questions.
I like to know, like, oh, what's the inspiration behind that keyboard sound, or were you listening to a particular album when you made that song because it reminds me of this Neil Young album or whatever it is. The trailer for the new season of Workin Moms is very exciting, and it feels more like an action movie or something. Was it for that specifically? Was there like, oh, it would be fun if we kind of went in that direction to lead with this season?
That is so
was there anything in
observant
mind?
of you, Max.
Mm-hmm.
That's so observant because we got these 2 new, just fucking great editors, these 2 chicks, and we've been lucky. We've had a lot of really good editors, but these 2 women.
Shout them out. Shout them out. We have industry people that listen to us. What are their names?
Okay, awesome. Mariana Corey and Lindsay Alakas. I'll send you their names. Maybe you can put them on. They're brilliant, and they cut together. And Chuck, who is our assistant editor, they cut together these promos, and they feel like we call them a what are they called? Okay, you're at the You're at a theme park or a carnival, and you're riding on top of the thing that goes round and round.
Graviton? Gravitron?
A carousel.
Carousel.
It's not a hard word. It's not.
Come on,
see,
Mike.
I'm gonna hate myself for not remembering that word. Can you
Well,
edit that out?
I said Gravitron. If you want another go, we
start
can
it
cut
again.
it.
Let's edit.
Yeah.
No, don't. No, show me as flawed. It's important.
Keep it
it's
real.
important for me as important for you.
Yeah.
It's okay to have flaws. It's okay to not remember carousel. It's a fucking easy word, though. I'll give you that. It's called a carousel, where it's just like a thematic thing, where as opposed to showing one character going through something, it's exciting moments from every character. And I thought they killed it with this year's promos. I love them.
Yeah, it is very cinematic, which leads me to my last question. Will there ever be a Workin Moms movie?
I don't know. I mean, how do you guys feel about Sex and the City making a movie? You think it's cool? You think it's weird? You think it's taking advantage?
I don't know if I love it. Yeah.
Exploitative? Shits is doing it too, right? Shits is making a movie.
Are they
Really?
really? I didn't know.
Yeah.
I think it all depends if it's good or not. Like, I feel like the
Sure.
first Sex and the City movie was good. And then I feel like it dropped off a little bit. I haven't seen
Shane,
it.
are you a Sex and the City fan?
No.
Sounds like
No,
a
I'm
yes.
not. No, I'm not.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's wonderful if you already know, if the fans are like, we know the world of the characters and we want to see it and feel closure. I think it's a great opportunity. I don't know if I would do that though. Max, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
And you have to pretend to be 100% truthful and honest, or I will never do this podcast again.
Okay.
When we sang together, do you think I have the chops to sing? Like, do you think I've got real capabilities, real skill?
I think you do. I think you could parlay what you do into some sort of like Broadway. I feel like, I don't know if you're a pop star. I don't know if you're putting out a folk album, but I think you could do like the theater. I think that's your lane.
Performative.
Performative, yeah. Because you can carry a tune. Like you know what I mean? Like you're not tone deaf.
Max, if you're pulling my leg, I'm going to be pissed.
No. I think that's your next career move. Fuck the other shows you're working on. Right to Broadway is what you.
Should
ought
I
to be
wait
doing.
till I'm like 50?
See, that'd be a cool second half
just
of
go
your.
full second
Right?
half of my life on just one of those old
Do
angry
it.
dames on the stage.
You just wanted to say the word dame. That's what you.
Old
Yes,
angry dames.
100%.
That's going to be the title of this
100%.
episode. Yeah.
An old
Carousel
angry
nowhere
dame
near.
with
Dame
Catherine
right
Reitman.
there. Old angry dame. It's just me and a fucking cane, even though I don't need it.
Yeah, Catherine, we do. The each episode is titled with something stupid that somebody said during the episode. So with your
Yes.
permission, it's going to be Old Angry Dame, the Catherine Reitman interview. All right, excellent.
You got. In case there's a delay, yes, approved.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your family day. You know, you're not doing the wood, so I'm not going to say good luck chopping that stuff up. But
no.
but yeah, next time when we can get on a stage again, maybe not Broadway,
that.
we're going to listen to you sing. We're going to do an interview. All four of us will get up there and we'll do it.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Really, really appreciate
I
it.
have so much fun with you guys. Thank you.
All right.
You're the best.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome back. Thank you so much to Catherine Reitman. Check out Workin Moms on CBC and CBC Gem. Yeah. Guys, what'd you think of Catherine?
Oh, she's hilarious. Like, even with the Zoom delays and all the problems that come along with doing a Zoom call, especially if you want to be funny, she seems to always have the perfect comedic timing.
Yeah.
Which I'm very jealous of.
Yeah, it's almost like she knew like she either waited for the pauses or she would just go anyway and trust it all to fall into place, and it always did. Yeah, she's the best.
Yeah, she seems like she'd be like a good collaborator. Because she's obviously like the star and creator of the show, but she's also like running the set and has to work very closely with basically every member of the team. And she's obviously really smart, but treats people really well, has a great sense of humor. Puts people at ease. I noticed in the interview, she did the thing, which is such a pro move, where she, great question. Oh, that's a really good question. And even just like that kind of feedback makes the question asker obviously feel really good. And I can imagine her on set just making people feel really good about their job and getting the most out of them. So kudos to her.
Yeah, I think it's the first time anyone's ever said good question to one of my questions. So I was really on cloud nine. I was trying not to show it. I was just like trying to be like stoic about it. But yeah, that was a really exciting moment.
Well, I will say that the Zoom freeze helped with your stoicism in that moment. But it was a great question. When you asked it, I was sitting here thinking, that's a great question. And then she said it, and I was like, I'm glad she said it because it was worthy of it.
I can't even remember what I asked. I'll have to listen to this interview.
Yeah. Guys, it is time for Shane's dessert. This is going to be a long episode. We're cooking today, man.
Yeah, we tried to keep all these episodes under an hour to keep the editing a little faster, but here we are.
The conversations are too good. Mm-hmm. Okay, but I don't know how. I'll try to keep this one short. Long story short, okay, my troll is retiring. So I'll read you a message I just got randomly the other day. Okay, so he said, his name's Jack Pine, the troll. This is an alias. He said, okay, it's been fun ripping you, but I don't feel right shredding you anymore. You know, priorities change, and it's just become too easy. You've already become such a shell of yourself.
A burn on the way out. I like it.
I have to deactivate Jack Pine. Not for any legal reasons or anything, just time. I said, who is the real Jack Pine? He said, I feel like telling you that would drastically cheapen this whole experience. And the main message here is Shaney Boy 69 is so much cooler than Shane Daddy. You can be both and keep the wife happy. So he's saying, I can still be Shaney Boy 69, keep the wife happy. Don't lose yourself though, bro. That's a death sentence for you and your marriage. Really, with the man bun? Fuck, bro. You should take Letterkenny more seriously and pull your finger out of your ass. I guess he saw that I was wearing a man bun on the show. I said, I'm more of a Schitt's Creek guy. And then I said, also, let's not assume that Shane Daddy 83 is keeping the wife happy. I said, the man bun was explained on the last episode because Mike requested it. Listen to the pod, man. I said, I do not wear it in real life. He says, oh, I see. So it's more David than Wayne. Win that case. Put a finger up your ass, AI, I guess. Shane Daddy not keeping the wife happy. Noted. I will find a few hours of life to waste and listen to your pod. I'm so excited to actually. Not. So yeah, that's how it's been going with the troll.
Hey, do you think the knot was like a clever callback to our Wayne's World conversation last episode?
I don't know. I can't get a read on this guy's comedy IQ because sometimes it seems so high off the charts that I'm envious of him, and sometimes it seems so juvenile from like elementary school days. But he finds the blend. Yeah, exactly. But he finds the balance pretty good. He always keeps me laughing. I am kind of sad to see him go. But I guess the question is two parts. Have I changed that much since I converted to Shane Daddy 83 from Shaney Boy 69, which to me it was just a name change. It didn't represent anything other than that. And two, how have you guys changed during this quarantine? Because that's when I did this name change.
Okay. Do I think you've changed? I would say I don't see you every day anymore, so I don't know. I would say that like in our texts or our phone conversations about work and stuff like that, you seem totally the same to me. I think what's different about your life is, I think people have this kind of this sort of misconception about you that you were like a wild man before and then you settled down. I think that you've always been very sort of like focused on the task. Like when you're doing something, you're doing something. And so all that's different now is you don't have like that once every couple weeks where you like hang out and like have like let loose. So it's like nobody's getting that let loose time. But the truth is you've always kind of been the way that you are now. You're focused on either your work with Bell Media or with Family Tree. So it's like I don't think you're much different. It's just you don't get the party part of it anymore, which nobody really is getting, and you're not in the backyards. I guess what I'm saying is I think you've always led more nerdy than people think based on the way you've been portrayed in this podcast. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because we only talk about the fun, outrageous times. It's hard to talk about the boring times in your life, which I lead 98% of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Which is that's just more often. But you want to distill the funny parts for the pod, and that's the way.
Yeah, 100%. Have you changed at all in this pandemic in any notable ways?
I don't know. I think I have. There's Yeah, I'm a little quieter, but that's just the kind of way it is. I've been very open about how much I miss our old life and the social interaction. Like, I'm an extrovert. I get energy from people, and it's like I don't really see people that much. And when I do, it's for a couple hours in the backyard, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. That's, so it's like that naturally mutes you, I think, your personality and all that stuff. But I would say overall, like if I had to self-assess, it's like, say 100% of my personality before the pandemic, I probably lost 10%, maybe. I don't know. It's not vast. It's not drastic in my mind, but you guys might be a better judge of that than I am.
What do you think about this, Max? Have I changed?
This is a good question. It's something I've been thinking about more broadly. No, that
was a pro move, Max. To do that.
Yeah. That's funny. No, but because it's hard to evaluate people's kind of character and rhythms right now because it's not real life. And everybody obviously has a different situation when it comes to who they're interacting with in their bubble. Everyone has different comfort levels. Everyone has everyone's dealing with their own shit. So I'd say that like there are a group of guys that kind of have made efforts to kind of get together and be together in the backyard, for instance, or, people are like reaching out to be more social. Other friends have absolutely not done that. And I'd put you in that category. And it does,
alienate me?
Well, no, not alienate you. But it does make you go, I wish we saw Shane a little bit more often. But then on the other hand, it's like we're going through the pandemic. So I'd say you will be judged on this question when the pandemic is over, if you're Shane Daddy 83 or if you're Shane Daddy 69. Because I think, if I were to guess, I think you're more Shane Daddy 83 now, and you're not Shaney Boy 69. I think Shaney Boy 69 is a thing of the past. I personally love Shaney Boy 69. And I wish Shaney Boy 69 came around a little bit more often. And we'll see if that happens when this pandemic is over. And,
Are
that's
you
that.
Jack Pine, Max? Seriously.
I don't know.
All right.